There is only one way to avoid, my hair looks crazy, the next financial crisis. Look at my hair. Sorry, ladies. Sorry, I haven't taken a shower yet. Oh my goodness, sticking up cowlicks. Anyway, so check this out. I'm reading this article right here on Minnesotapedia. This is fantastic. The agricultural depression of 1920 to 1934. We got a lot to cover here, so don't forget to paw that like button. Paw was right underneath me. He wants you to paw it. He says meow 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 mix cat food. Minnesota farmers enjoyed a period of prosperity in the 1910s that continued through World War I. Encouraged by the U.S. government to increase production, they took out loans to buy more land and invest in new equipment. Interesting. As war-torn countries recovered, however, the demand for U.S. exports fell, and land values and prices for commodities dropped as well. Farmers found it hard to repay their loans. Interesting. The onset of World War I in 1914 sparked an economic boom for farmers in the U.S. Demand for agricultural products soared as the war-ravaged countries of Europe could no longer produce needed supplies. This created a shortage that drove up prices. In fact, here's the price of hogs. From 1914 to 1919, they went from $7.40 per 100 pounds to $16.70. Wait a second. That must be caused by the Federal Reserve printing money, right? Because remember, inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. Inflation is always too much supply chasing too few goods. Interesting. We always forget about the supply, the too much money chasing too few goods. Excuse me. We always talk about the too much money, but we never talk about the supply. Actually, that's what causes the shortage. It's not the Federal Reserve printing money. I mean, it could be, but the vast majority of times it's a shortage caused by some idiotic government policy. That's for sure. Or war, which is an idiotic government policy for sure. Anyway, so hogs. The average price of hogs increased from $7.40 to $16.70. Interesting. To meet the demand, the U.S. government encouraged farmers to produce more. And in 1916, the Congress passed the Federal Farm Loan Act. All right, believing that the boom would continue, many farmers took advantage of this and other loan opportunities to invest in the land, tractors, and other new labor-saving equipment at interest rates ranging from 5 to 7%. By 1920, 52% of the 132,000 Minnesota farms had debt totaling more than $254 million. By 1920, over half of Minnesota farms had debt totaling over $254 million. Woo! It might seem a drop in the bucket at 200. How much was it? We had $254 million for U.S. farmers. As the economy in 1920, the overall U.S. was $687 billion. But remember, that was just Minnesota farmers. Half of them had that kind of debt. And that's where I'm saying this is what I want to share with you, how you can avoid the next financial crisis. Because it's going to come, dude. They ebb and flow, always. Doesn't matter about the Federal Reserve. It doesn't matter gold standard. They flow and they come. It doesn't matter whatever Keynesian economist. There's a business cycle that communists deal with, fascists deal with, opposed to capitalists deal with. You can't get around it. The business cycle comes and goes. There's only one way for you to avoid it. And I'll share it with you here quick. All right, so anyway, let's keep going. All right, the demand for land inflated the price of farm real estate regardless of quality. The average price of Minnesota farmland doubled from 46 an acre to 109 an acre from 1910 to 1920. Very interesting. And there's just huge demand for U.S. agricultural products. All right. Farmers continued to produce more, expecting demand and prices to remain stable. But as Europe began to recover, the U.S. farm economy began a long downward trend. Check this out. The price of hogs from 1919 to 1920 fell from $16.70 per 100 pounds to $12.90. You want to see something else? Let's watch this. By 1932, the price of hogs fell to $3.20 per 100 pounds. $3.20 for 100 pounds. With less demand for land, real estate values plunged to an average of $35 an acre in the 1930s. And how much was it before that? Remember that we talked about this? They were taking out loans to buy real estate at $109 an acre. And then it fell to, what do we say, $35? $35 per acre. Farmers struggled to repay loans for land that had lost its value, but rising property taxes, freight rates, and labor costs added to financial hardships for many farmers. And even though the price of farmlands was dropping, the tax price went from 46 cents per acre to $145 an acre in 1930. farmers across the country began to default on their loans. An estimated 60 of every 1,000 farms in America lost their farms or filed for bankruptcy. Between 1926 and 1932, 1,442 farms totaling almost 300,000 acres were lost to foreclosure. By December 1934, 18% of Minnesota's total population was on some kind of relief. So, you see what happened there, right? They borrowed at higher and higher prices, spurred on by supply shortages, government basically telling them, hey, borrow, because we need your production. And the crazy thing is, if you look right here, not only was the production increasing, but the technology was increasing too to increase even more production. And I talk about in this book, Days on the Family Farm from Carrie Meyer, where not only did they were killing pigs to increase the prices. It was so desperate that they were killing pigs. I think Carrie said they killed like 6 million pigs or something like that in the 1930s to increase the prices. I can't remember what it said, but it's crazy. And yet the price of 100 pounds of hogs was still down to $3.20. Now check this out right here. In 1910, Elmo, who's a protagonist farmer in this book, harvested 149 bushels for about 149 bushels of potatoes for every acre. A bushel of potatoes is about 50 pounds. In 1900, an acre yielding 81 bushels produced 4,000 pounds of potatoes. All right, so 1900, an acre yielding 81 bushels produced 4,000 pounds of potatoes. Today, an acre can produce 25 to 30,000 pounds of potatoes. So from 1900, it was 4,000 pounds of potatoes an acre. Until today, it's 30,000 pounds an acre. Isn't that crazy? And then on top of that, we had shipping that Carrie talks about, like refrigeration and stuff like that, which is then better roads, which is allowing to move products. All that was increasing production. And yet people said, I can't increase production because the prices aren't there. It's not enough to cover my costs. And on top of that, they had loans outstanding. Same thing happened in the great financial, the GFC, the global financial crisis. The exact same thing happened. We had massive amounts of people leveraged to the hilt. And when the chips fell, they couldn't pay their debts. There is only one way to avoid a financial crisis for you specifically, and that's to get out of debt. You cannot borrow. I'm going to show you something else here too. I showed this last night on the live stream. There's the inflation adjusted growth of U.S. housing prices versus income, disposable incomes after taxes. Yeah, they track pretty good. Now, right now, the housing price in the blue a little bit higher than inflation adjusted disposable income. That's in the U.S. Check out for Australia. That you would have to buy. Look at this. It's almost 5 to 1. Adjusted growth of Australia housing prices versus disposable income. Remember when the World Economic Forum said you'll own nothing, be happy? Well, Australia is a perfect example of that. You cannot afford that. You're going to go bankrupt at some point. Your income isn't keeping up with that. I literally don't know how people are affording houses there. Your debt is so high that the financial crisis is going to hit these people who are buying. Now look at this. It's even worse. This is right here. U.S. household balances are in great shape relative to Canada and Australia. Here we are, disposable net income is less than 100% of our debt. Disposable net income, again, is after taxes. But here, for Canada and Australia, they're almost 200%. Their debt is almost twice as high as the disposable net income. Canada and Australia have seen debt-to-income ratios rise for years now, while U.S. households have been repairing their balance sheets ever since the great financial crisis. Mortgage debt makes up 70% of U.S. household debt. 70%. And here we are right here. Widespread use of variable mortgages are vulnerable in most countries except for U.S. We are the least vulnerable to higher mortgages, variable mortgages. Canada, everyone's favorite, Sweden, Australia. It was crazy. They're going to have massive financial chaos. And check this out. We go back to Carrie Meyer. He says on page 152 of this, Days of the Family Farm, the low farm prices made it extremely difficult to pay back loans taken when prices were high. The risk of foreclosure was severe but selective. Only those farms that were heavily mortgaged were at risk. In the U.S. as a whole, 42% of farms carried mortgages in 1930, and while most of those were manageable, of the farmers who were indebted, about a third, risk to default. All right, so of the, only 42% had any debt at all. It means 58% did not. They avoided the great financial crisis, the Great Depression. And only 40, I mean, still, a third of the 42% who had heavy debt were heavily mortgaged. I mean, so a significant amount of people were not heavily indebted. That's just a fact, just kind of like the American household today. But there are some, and the way you avoid being that person is to not have debt. Here's our protagonist, Elmo, right here. Elmo's during the war, Elmo sold hogs at $20 per hundredweight. We already talked about that. 1670, Elmo himself sold $20 per hundred. Hogs at $20 per hundred. By 1932, he sold at less than $4 per hundred. Thankfully, Elmo did not have debt. He did not have to pay those debt payments. Dude, it's crazy, man. As prices were falling, the people in debt had a mortgage, had a foreclosed, and they were done for. There's only one lesson to learn. Do not take on massive amounts of debt. Pay it off. Well, how do I buy a house? Great question. That's a tough one, man. My daughter, I mean, she's in San Diego right now. She talks to me all the time. She's like, how do I do this, man? I don't know. That's a tough question. Your debt to income should not be more than basically 40% of your total in terms of your house. Debt to income shouldn't be more than 40%, if even that. That's tough, man. It's tough. I get it. But the way to avoid the next financial crisis is to not have debt. It's just there's the only way to do it. In the 2007, did you not learn your lesson? The people who are heavy indebted, your own buddy Josh himself, I was this close to losing everything because the debts were due, and the debts were due, and my income was less, and my friggin' investments were less. People say, oh, but Josh, the stock market. Do you not know what happened in the stock market from 1928 to basically 1954? Do you not know what happened in the stock market from 2007 to 2009? Come on, dude. You can't rely on stocks to bail you out. Anyway, hope this helps. I always find these articles very, very interesting about the past because